welcome to all. Thanks for joining our CXO series jointly organized by SG Tech and the Singapore Contractors Association to engage the government and the industries by exchanging business insights and also sharing our challenges. Today's climate offers many challenges for our businesses, but in every crisis, there are also opportunities for reinvention and growth. So the construction and facilities management sector is an important pillar for our local economy. SMEs in the sector must have strong fundamentals to stay agile, especially during these uncertain times. So today's session will be touching on digitalisation and the transformation for SMEs in the construction and facilities management sector to manage digital disruptions and also challenges for the incumbents. We are honoured today to have our guest of honour, Mr. Tan Kiat Hao, Minister of State, Prime Minister Office and Ministry of National Development, as well as a very strong panel for today. So before we begin, I would like to highlight some house rules for the session. Firstly, a gentle reminder that this webinar will be recorded for marketing and archival purposes. The recording will be uploaded onto SG Tech's website. Secondly, you can type your questions in the Zoom Q&A box throughout the webinar. Selected questions will be answered. Please do indicate your company name as well as your name when asking the questions. So today's session will be moderated by Haresh. Haresh is the co-opted councillor at SG Tech and also VP of Sales at Autodesk in Asia Pacific. He has more than 25 years of experience, having spent 19 years in Microsoft, where he held various senior leadership roles in sales and marketing, covering the APAC market. A postgraduate with an MBA with distinction from the University of Stirling and a graduate in leading change and organizational renewal at the Harvard Business School, Haresh is passionate about business and culture transformation in the digital age. He has led many teams through the transition to digital throughout his career and is an adjunct professor at various business schools teaching on topics related to transformation, culture, diversity, and leadership. Passionate advocate about technology as a transformational enabler, Haresh also coaches other senior executives. Haresh is a published author in the media. Some of his articles have been featured in qz.com and venturebeat.com, just to name a few. He is also a regular speaker and have presented at various events, including the Bloomberg Asian Business Summit in Bangkok, the Harvard College in Asia program, and twice at the TEDx Chiang Mai and the TEDx University of Malaya. Haresh sits on boards of the various organizations and was awarded the Global Brand Leadership Award at the World Brand Congress for his thought leadership in marketing. Without further ado, I will now pass on to Haresh for the rest of the session today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ying. I hope all of you can hear me loud and clear. It's a real pleasure to be here hosting today's dialogue on transformation of the construction sector, something really important to our economy and to Singapore. And we have an outstanding panelist, so I'm actually quite excited to jump in and kind of get things going. I encourage all of you to ask your questions. We'll do our very best to answer as many as we can in the time that we have. These are very, very senior, experienced individuals, and I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom that we can extract through the conversation. Now, disruption and digital transformation has been a big topic for a long time. And I think there's been a lot of things that have been happening over time to get companies of all sizes to either transform and adopt. And Singapore is no exception. I've been following a study from Cisco and IMD called the Digital Vortex Study from the year 2015. And what's interesting about this study, it tracks digital adoption across the different industries. And this year, according to the latest Vortex study in 2019, construction is the furthest away from digital adoption, actually moving to the last position. Now, another study from IDC that Autodesk did with IDC globally, was also showing that 72% of companies actually in the construction space deem digitization as important, but only 13%, 1/3, are at mature stages of adoption. So we know technology can be a big transformer, can allow us to save money, save costs, improve efficiency, be more effective and competitive. But we also know that in Singapore, this is an important sector for the economy. And our government has actually been doing a lot to provide funding to help in upskilling and reskilling, to provide funding to help companies actually adopt digital technologies. Now, with all of this knowledge, with all of these resources that are available, why is it then that what's stopping construction companies from advancing their digital transformation journey? Now, if you are a small company, how do you get started? And what will the impact of COVID be in terms of hindrance or acceleration of every company's journey to digital? Now, these are just some of the questions that I'm sure are on your mind. And these are some of the experiences that our panel have to be able to enlighten us in the course of the next 90 minutes. So let me introduce this outstanding panel to all of us. I want to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Tan Kiat, Minister of State, Prime Minister's Office and Ministry of National Development. Welcome, Kiat. I want to introduce Mr. Kelvin Wong, CEO, BCA. Welcome, Kelvin. I want to introduce Mr. Ashvinkumar, Group CEO, Ong&Ong. Welcome, Ash. Introduce Mr. Johnny Lim, Executive Director, Team Build Engineering and Construction. Welcome, Johnny. Thank you very much to all of you for taking time to join us today. I know in this new COVID world, we're working more hours. So we really appreciate all of you participating and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. So on that note, I want to hand over to Kiat to kick us off with his opening address. Kiat.
Thank you, Haresh, and thank you, SG Tech, for inviting me to this panel, and very pleased to be here with my fellow distinguished panelists to speak about this topic that's very close to our hearts. The built environment sector, especially the construction industry, has been hit very hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Almost all construction work came to a halt during the circuit breaker period, and many migrant workers residing in the dormitories were infected with COVID-19. Contractors have had to deal with challenges, including work suspensions, supply chain disruptions, and cash flow issues. Construction projects have since resumed. However, contractors are also experiencing loss in productivity. For example, contractors have to observe safe management measures, such as having workers segregated into different work zones and arranging staggered reporting times and meal times. With reduced inflow of migrant workers, firms have provided feedback of the lack of skilled workers for some projects. During this challenging period, we have leaned forward to assist and provide relief to firms. We've introduced flexibility in the restart criteria to help construction works restart quickly while not compromising on safety. We have also provided various financial assistance for firms to tide through this period, such as the support for salaries of local employees through a job support scheme, significant waivers and rebates on foreign worker levies, and a 1.36 billion construction support package. In fact, just 2 days ago, we just passed a bill to amend the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act in order to further support the sector so that no one single stakeholder in the entire value chain has to bear a disproportionate share of burden brought about by COVID. And we are seeing good progress in the work restart, but we are not out of the woods yet. And we'll continue to work with the industry to collectively navigate the challenges of COVID-19. And which brings us to this topic that's so important today. The COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated and amplified the urgency for the industry to transform, something that we have embarked on even before the pandemic. In October 2017, we launched the Construction Industry Transformation Map, or ITM for short, to chart out a roadmap aimed at transforming the industry, grow better jobs, and to strengthen our overall economic potential. The Construction ITM advocates a vision of an advanced and integrated building and construction sector with widespread adoption of leading technologies led by progressive and collaborative firms supported by a skilled and competent workforce. And this transformation will pivot the redesign of many jobs to offer more attractive job scopes and salaries, especially for Singaporeans, in a more conducive working environment. And in terms of digitalization, the ITM pushes for the adoption of the Integrated Digital Delivery, or IDD for short. And IDD builds on top of the Building Information Modeling Systems, or BIM, and fully integrates the entire building life cycle and its various parties via digital information. This improves the accuracy of construction plans, allows for conflicts to be resolved at the design stage, and enhances the coordination of the production, delivery, and installation of building modules. All this translates into time saving and reduction in abortive work downstream. In fact, the adoption of IDD also helped make the construction process more pandemic resilient. During the circuit breaker, most work at construction sites had ceased. However, projects that were on cloud-based collaborative platforms were able to continue with the upstream design work. Project stakeholders were able to collaborate virtually despite staff members and work partners being unable to meet in person. We are seeing good progress on the adoption of IDD in the industry. The number of public and private sector projects piloting IDD has increased to 48 compared to just 12 in 2018. And the government has been helping construction companies, including SMEs, to digitize. For example, BCA, IMDA, and Skills Future Singapore launched the Construction and Facilities Management Industry Digital Plan in March 2020, just this year. $90 million was set aside to support SMEs to defray costs for adoption of pre-approved solutions and pre-scoped IT solutions that enhances productivity. The IDP guides SMEs to assess their level of digital readiness and identify digital solutions that can benefit their businesses. SMEs can also use the digital roadmap on training to identify digitalization courses for employees. And more recently, we have launched the Advanced Digital Solutions Scheme, or ADS, to help companies ensure the safety of their workers as construction work restarts. $20 million has been set aside for the ADS scheme. Firms can use ADS solutions, including biometric facial recognition systems, Bluetooth-enabled wearables, and camera-enabled by artificial intelligence to improve the productivity and worksite efficiency. I encourage firms to tap on these schemes if you have not already done so. BCA has also developed the BuildSG COVID Safe platform that provides a central database for the construction industry to implement the necessary COVID-19 control measures. These platforms receive data from commercially available digital solutions and hardware devices deployed on-site and facilitate data exchanges with other government databases, such as Safe Entry and Access Code, helping builders improve their efficiency in complying with COVID-safe restart criteria. In conclusion, this has been a very difficult year for the built environment sector. And instead of being despondent, we should turn the crisis into an opportunity for the sector to become more productive and resilient. Hence, we need to press on with our industry transformation efforts in order to emerge stronger from COVID-19, and hope to get everyone's support on this effort. On that note, I wish everyone a productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiat. As Winston Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. So I couldn't agree more. I think, crisis is, can be viewed as an opportunity as well. But you're right, it's not been easy for the industry. And when you look at some of the trends that are shaping up today, in commercial, many employers are now starting to look at the current market situation and rethink real estate footprint. And KPMG recently said that 88% of employers are reconsidering their office space and looking at flexible office options as an example. You think about countries like Singapore, we are providing a lot of safety measures, which also then has a corresponding impact with regards to how offices get redesigned to facilitate safety and health in the office as well for all employees. And I think according to BCA, demand in construction in Singapore is likely to decline as well. And I think if I read the numbers correctly, the projected construction demand forecast in 2020 has gone down from 30 billion to 23 billion. Still high, but definitely a decline in terms of demand growth. So when you look at all of that, the industry is facing a challenge, but there is, like you said, opportunity. When you look at what the Singapore government has been doing, big on investing in platforms to help construction companies and SMEs lower their concerns with funding and help them digitize. And this has happened even before the pandemic started. However, the digital maturity of the industry continues to lag and hasn't progressed as much. So Kiat, this one's for you. Just kick things off for us. So if all of this support exists and all this great funding exists, what are the roadblocks do you think that stand in the way, and what can we do so that the entire construction ecosystem advances their digital transformation journey?
Thanks, Harish, for this very good question to kickstart the conversations. Well, besides having the digital infrastructure or platforms, I think there are two important areas that we need to pay attention to. One, firms will have to change mindset in terms of how they think about existing practices and adopting technology to enhance efficiency. So first thing is a mindset. Second, I think we need to recognize that the built environment sector is a very complex ecosystem comprising many players and many partners in the entire value chain, entire supply chain. And that is why the second area I think we need to focus on is take an all-inclusive view across entire building value chain in order for all of us to fully reap the benefits of digitalization. And developers play a pivotal role in the built environment sector's digital transformation. They need to see the value of digitalization in order to help drive adoption of the digital technologies and transform the supply chain. So starting from developers. For example, today, more than 150 firms or leading firms have participated in the 48 integrated digital delivery projects, or IDD projects I spoke about just now. These are demonstration projects, and it shows that everyone can reap benefits of digitalization throughout the entire project lifecycle. From design, fabrication, assembly on site, to operations, and even maintenance of buildings. In fact, I was add on, including the estate agents. I just finished a call just before the SGTech webinar with the real estate agents. They can benefit from digitalization as well as part of the entire value chain. And there's also a need to get a buy-in from public and private sector clients to adopt a common set of digital solutions, digital use cases, and data standards. And this is very important. Standardization across the entire value chain that enables better benefits of digitalization to be spread across the entire chain. And one good example is the Intelligent National Productivity and Quality Specification, a joint initiative by the Singapore Institute of Architects, SIA, Association of Consulting Engineers, Singapore, ACES, Institute of Engineers, Singapore, IES. It provides a cloud-based digital solution for architects and engineers to develop the building specifications digitally. Projects partners can better coordinate the specifications for different disciplines while ensuring consistency with design models. And the specifications are linked to the national standards and manufacturing product libraries to ease product sourcing efforts. So it's a very good example, and it will be launched in November this year. Second thing, firms will also need to build up their workforce capabilities to relevant digital skill sets. They need to adopt a more innovative mindset to reinvent the way they work with the help of technology. And this allows them to not just reap efficiencies, but also capture new growth opportunities. And this could be done by working with institutes of higher learning, IHLs, to put in place training programs targeted at existing professionals and future entrants of the industry to prepare them for the upcoming digital transformation. And one example will be the Built Environment Skills Framework, which was co-developed with the industry stakeholders for the industry. It was launched earlier this year to provide clear competency ladders for different job roles, which will guide building professionals and firms on necessary IDD skills and training. Another example would be the Digital Delivery Management Accreditation Scheme, or DDM accreditation scheme. It provides a structured framework to access individual digital skill sets and assist clients and employers in identifying individuals with the right skill sets. This will ensure firm level or project level digital initiatives are managed by qualified professionals so as to be able to deliver the intended outcome. And the DDM, the Digital Delivery Management Scheme, we launch next year, Q1 next year. So these are two things we talked about, but I also add a third one is actually it's about creating a sense of excitement about the industry. And this is something I'm very passionate about. To me, digitalization creates many opportunities, but also create many good job roles and job scopes that brings in new talents into our industry, creating new exciting jobs for young people, and that will help to reinvigorate and refresh the entire industry. So I'll just pause here and let my rest of my distinguished panelists add on.
Thank you, Kiat. You touched on some really amazing points. I mean, from the hardcore, tangible stuff around how do you see the value of digital and how do you actually measure the impact of digital to things like public-private partnership that will drive transformation. It's not one or the other. To things like the intangibles mindset, because digital is new to everyone, right? And things like excitement for the industry. When you think construction, there could be a very dated way of thinking about construction. So how do you inject excitement? So I want to build off what you've just said, and I want to move to Ash now. I've gotten to interact with Ash, and I've been pretty amazed with the work that he's driven in Ong&Ong. An SME that's grown, that's gone through the highs, gone through the lows. No business grows in a linear fashion. You've transformed it to be one of the most prominent design firms in the region, and still continue to learn and grow and be grounded in how you do it. But at the heart of it has been digitization and the role digitization has played in helping you advance and grow. So Ash, maybe you can share, with the team and everyone out here, how you've driven that, how you've taken on digitization and digital technologies, how you've overcome roadblocks, mindsets, Kiat talked about capabilities, workforce, all of that are things that I think you've had to deal with over time. So share with us a little bit about your story.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Now, Ong&Ong, we are a multidisciplinary practice. We are founded in Singapore, headquartered here, but we have a regional practice in the whole of Southeast Asia, except Brunei. And so we started our journey in about 2011, 2012, when BCA announced the mandate that projects of a certain GFA would require BIM as a submission requirement. And so we discussed internally that do we just use BIM to achieve a statutory requirement, or do we invest in digital technology to overhaul our whole process of working? Because I then decided, together with EXCO, that we wanted to do the latter, meaning that within Singapore and in all our offices, we should all be on the same platform. Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam should not be second cousins to Singapore in terms of embracing technology. We should all be equal. And that is because we ask ourselves a very fundamental question. Do you want to be disrupted, or do you want to be the disruptor? So we said, let's be the disruptor. It was difficult in the beginning, or challenging, but over time, when we spoke to our colleagues within the office in Singapore and outside about the concept of being agile, about the concept of being mobile, and how this helps. Because at the peak of our business in about 2015, where we had grown to about 1,200 in strength within and outside Singapore, I realized that directors were flying in and out from every other country to do day trips or overnight trips. And it became very difficult for them to not be able to work while on the move. So this was the incentive that actually allowed us to move ahead. And, success is 1% inspiration, 99% alignment. So we really needed to align all our staff in this direction. And I think we haven't looked back. Now, the next thing that happened is that when I joined Ong&Ong about 10 years over, it was spread over 6 floors within the SLF building. Today, we are only on 2 floors. About the same number of staff that we have, 600. And because 3 years ago, I changed the whole office setup. We became 70% fixed, 30% fixed desks and 70% mobility. So I allowed staff to work from home because they could use digital technology, and that helped us because when circuit breakers started in April this year, the work from home wasn't an alien concept to many of the staff in Singapore and outside Singapore. They were already in some ways accustomed to it. Yeah, productivity was affected, but within 3-4 weeks, we were back to normal. But it really takes a great leap of faith and having confidence in our staff to actually achieve what we have done thus far in this road to embracing digital technology. And yes, it helps productivity, but the most important thing is the investment in the human capital development. So that's my sharing with all of you.
Thanks, Ash. Ash, just to follow up a little bit, you talked about work from home. It looks like you started work from home way, way earlier than most organizations.
Well, it was not, well, work from home is a rather new concept that came about recently, so as to speak, WFH. But we actually started about 2 years ago when hot desking became a requirement in all my offices in Singapore and outside Singapore. And that's the reason why from 6 floors today, I can accommodate the same number of staff over 2 floors because 50% of my staff at any one time are either at a job site, chairing meetings, or they're at a client's office attending meetings, or they are in the office. And you know, the space that's given to every staff, nobody's going to be there 8 to 10 hours a day because that space is going to be empty half the time. If you walk around any office, you'll realize that half the office is empty because people are on the move. They are working, not that they're not working. That you know. So yeah, we started the work from home concept about 2 years back when we transformed the whole work environment within Ong&Ong.
Which is pretty fantastic. So my question to you would be, and I get this a lot, you know, where people say, how do I hold my teams accountable? How do I know they're working? How do I ensure there's productivity if they're working from home? How did you guys overcome that?
Number one, as I mentioned earlier, you just have to have an honest system. An honest system, you have faith in your staff. And basically from the work that they produce, you can determine the productivity. There are ways and means of actually calibrating and tracking work. So of course, we don't go and tap the staff on the shoulder to say, hey, you know, you are slow, or hey, well done. We can tell. And the softer ways of actually incentivizing them not to slack. And if they slack once in a while, so what? It's human nature. You got to take a break. You got to have a pit stop along the journey to refuel, to recharge, and then you move again.
Nice humanistic way to look at it. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to remind everyone who's tuned in to post your questions as and when you like in the chat box, and we'll put it to the panelists. Okay, so don't be shy. No one's watching. Johnny, I've got something interesting that I want to bring you in on. Now, one scenario I heard for team build, you guys must often deal with different levels of digital readiness across the multitude of contractors and subcontractors. So for example, a contractor may be using digital tools, but then some of its subcontractors may not in the ecosystem. Something Kiat alluded to earlier, which kind of defeats the purpose of driving in the industry towards a digital way to drive productivity, time saving, cost saving, and so on. So what's your experience like in this regard? And how do you think we can solve for the lack of consistency across the ecosystem?
Maybe I will start by giving a bit of background of TeamBuild. Actually, when just 8 years ago, when we started on this digital journey, we only had one BIM modeler in the entire office. And we were just trying out the new software. Then a year later in 2013, through the good fortune of maybe BCA, they led a study trip to London to look at the new construction method for which I joined the trip. And they came back with some new technologies, one of which is PPVC, prefab, pre-finished volumetric construction. Of course, in London, the push was towards steel PPVC, but in a local context, the preferred construction material generally would still be in concrete. And that was where we felt there was a market to go into that. And that, in a way, kind of created a new segment for us by pushing for new construction method in concrete PPVC. And if you look at the construction method, it kind of revolutionized the way it's being constructed from the conventional. Conventional, you're looking at a lot of in situ work on site, a huge labor force, and organizing all the labor in to build the project on site. Whereas PPVC construction requires you to do as much of the work off-site. And because it's volumetric, the drawing requirements, the details, the coordination in terms of penetration of services or even a structural component has to be thought through and resolved at the front. And that goes back to my first point on BIM. Without a 3D modeling software, it is virtually impossible to do all this, because all the design has to be sorted out three-dimensionally before you even produce the modules on site. So over time, our BIM team has now grown to over 20 modelers. And sometimes at the peak, we're still coping with trying to resolve all this in the front end, and we have to outsource some of this overseas by setting up offshore services in other countries. So the reliance on technology becomes almost like a need rather than just to drive it for its purpose. And without that as a software, as a tool, you virtually cannot solve all these problems at the front end. And that leads to the next question: how do we then bring in the subcontractors in? You are right, in terms of the setup of some subcontractors, it is very difficult for them to invest on such technology because they are costly. You got the equipment, you got the software and all this. And for smaller contractors, basically there are two groups that we are working with. Some are equally foresighted. They are taking on new grants that are available. They are gradually transforming the organization to use some of this technology because they see a need and they see that as a requirement in a lot of new tenders. There is also another group that are a little bit behind in terms of the technology journey, and that's where TeamBuild as a company comes in to assist them. So they basically still give us the typical line drawings, and our modelers actually help to support, transform all this into 3D drawings and incorporating them into modules. So in terms of the overall journey is a collaboration, because we kind of want to lead them in, guide them in, hold their hands for a while until they are a bit more confident, and then perhaps the next project, they can then build out their own team to handle the more sophisticated part of the 3D modeling part of it.
Thanks, Johnny. So it sounds like it takes time and it's a journey, and you know, as a stakeholder, we need to help bring other people along with us in the journey.
Yes.
Right? So that's good. It sounds like you're saying that the future of construction is manufacturing.
It is.
It is. It is. In fact, it's a big mindset change. When we went into it, we were in a way the first mover, and being the first mover, you encounter a lot of challenges, you encounter a lot of problems. And in terms of the industry, is a total mindset change on bringing the people to a factory environment as compared to a on-site environment. And in the whole scheme of things, we are moving into a new industry. You got to look at transportation, you got to look at logistics, you got to look at factories, you got to look at fit-out yards. and then the delivery of all the modules has to be timely. Otherwise, any part of the manufacturing process get jammed out. The whole building process then get hindered and slowed down. So it comes to a point where the planning part of it becomes so important, and every party that's involved needs to in a way fall back on a program. And as the program develops, every party needs to be informed so that the whole supply chain, the whole construction process can still be carried out in a very timely manner.
Yeah, and you said it right. I mean, if you do everything planning up front, the build process becomes much faster. And even live examples in Wuhan recently, in the heart of the pandemic, they had to build a hospital to cater to the crisis, and they did it in 10 days. They built a hospital for thousands in 10 days because all of that happened up front using technology to design and pull the hospital together. So it's pretty amazing what the tech can do. I'll come back to you. I want to come back to you a little bit about measurement and impact and the cost of inaction. I'll come back to you shortly.
Yeah.
Let me rope Kelvin in. We've got some questions coming, but I want to rope Kelvin in, and then before we go to some of the questions. So, when we talk about Kelvin, when we talk about the lack of consistency in the ecosystem, we also mean platforms. So currently, BIM is the mandated technology, but there are many BIM platforms in the market which make for more difficult process when the intent is to make it simpler, right? Like what Johnny said, we have to bring other people along and teach them and build capabilities. But if you've got multiple platforms, it actually becomes harder, right? So in your view, how can we solve for this?
Thank you. Yeah, I was sharing with the panels and I'm only 12 weeks old into this industry. So let me try and answer that as best as possible. No, but I think there's quite a few things that we have to do. Like you mentioned, there are a few BIM platforms out there. And I think the challenges to many of the subcontractors is that, for them, every project they are having to take on, they are having to sign out multiple licenses, and it's quite costly for them. And even within the different platforms, I think there's a lack of standards. So it's actually not very interoperable. So I think there's two things. First of all, I think what the agencies and government procurement entities are working towards is actually to launch a common data environment. We're trying to push for adoption of a common data environment. And that data standards is, we are kind of launching it sometime the end of this year for a trial. And then we'll try to make it a national standard by next year, 2021. So hopefully by providing such the guidance of a common data environment, we will hopefully standardize the objects that are being used in many of these different platforms. And then I think thereafter, there will still be cases whereby the different platforms are still not quite interoperable. I think that's where we will have to work with the different tech and software providers to see how we can support the development of some of these open APIs to make the platforms interoperable. And then as we speak, we are also working with, like what Kiat mentioned, the developers are a big part to play because they are the customers at the end of the day. So we are having conversations with many of the key developers to see how we can also, leverage their projects, their buying power to actually pull through this transformation. I think one of the great things about this crisis is that it has actually created a burning platform for the industry to realize that, hey, actually, if we have to try to resume life even in the new environment, what would it take? And I think the embracing digital platforms is actually a way to go. And I mean, hearing from many consultants and architects that even during this time when everybody during circuit breaker has to work from home, many of the design works and the projects was actually still being discussed. And some of the more forward-looking main contractors have also been involved in some of the using the digital platforms to actually, work on some of these projects in the early stages. So I think this crisis have actually demonstrated that, there's a new way, there's a better way of working. So I think, we're hoping to get this common data environment going end of this year, early next year. And like I said, we will have to work very closely with the industry to bring about that movement to step forward.
Thanks, Kelvin. You've got a big job ahead of you, with putting some of these standards and everything in place for Singapore, but I think definitely way down the path already. So it's sounding really good. How do we bring the industry forward with us? And I want to open it up to the panel if anybody wants to chime in. And Ash, I know you're passionate about this as well, and you've had a lot of experience, with the successes you've seen with Ong&Ong and what you've done for the company. How do we get the broader ecosystem to move forward, to accelerate the adoption, leverage government support that is in place now?
Okay, I'll have a go at this. Now, one of the things is that, see, more often than not, we all run businesses. And at the end of the day, it's governed by profit and loss account, so to speak. So one of the things that I've always looked at is that do not see it as expenditure, see it as an investment. Because an expenditure is 12 months, because it has to be audited, it has to be accounted for at the end of the financial year. But if you see it as an investment, and you take grants as an investment, not as a tool to defray costs, I think it does change the mindset. And I'd like to also add in that while it could be rather overwhelming upfront, but after a year or two, and these are not short-term results that you'll see, you need to have the stamina to run the mile, so to speak. Within a year or two, you begin to see the benefit, because what happens is that your staff productivity goes up for a simple reason. Today, Ong&Ong, we are more Singapore and PR based in terms of the manpower, because we know that there is a national policy of having lesser reliance on foreign workers or foreign talent. And we need to get our local staff to actually see that through. We send them for courses, upgrading courses. We have our own in-house, what we call the 360 University, where we have developed our own learning programs, because they're customized to suit our own corporate structure and philosophy when it comes to work. So the most important thing is that see all this expenditure as investments, not as cost. It will change your mindset completely.
I like that. I like the fact that you said grants as an investment or a stepping stone, right?
Yeah.
Versus grants to defray costs, so to speak. It gets you started and gets things kicking off, which is really, really good.
And the other thing I would also like to add is that when Johnny mentioned about using 3D modeling, you'll be surprised when you go to site that even a semi-skilled worker, when he looks at the 3D drawing, he knows better what to do as compared to looking at a 2D drawing.
Yes.
Yeah, because then lesser mistakes are made, and that means productivity. And look, I asked myself a very simple question: why are all the bigger Singapore-based contractors investing in digital technology? Because they see the benefit. Why are the bigger consultancy practices investing in digital technology? Because they see the benefit of it. So I think for the smaller and the medium practices, I think take it as an investment, embrace it, because then it will also help you to grow in time to come. Because everybody aspires to grow, aspires to do better. There are very few among us who are very esoteric to say that I just want to be a simple one-man show, because that's my passion. We can accept that, but most of us aspire to grow and become better in our work that we do, in our lifestyle, in the way that we take care of our fellow colleagues within the office.
Very cool. Thank you, Ash. Love the passion. Johnny, do you want to add? Did you want to add? So,
yeah. Okay, just following up on Ash's point. I don't see technology as disruptive, although the common term of disruptive technology. In fact, this pandemic, in a way, have accelerated the whole process of technology adoption, from the video comm softwares to even the contact tracing to ordering of food using apps. I find that during this period of pandemic, somehow the whole process of adoption has, in a way, speed up. Even the the AMA going to the NTUC has to use the phone to scan in. If not, they got to use the IC. So in the whole process, the adoption, the kind of acceptance of technology as part of your lifestyle becomes almost a must and kind of being embraced. If there's anything disruptive, is actually the virology and not technology. So it's a virus that disrupt everything. And even for ourselves operating on the site, for safe entry measure and all those, we are looking at temperature scanners, we are looking at cameras that are able to track the workers and seeing whether they are complying with the safe distancing measure, for instance. They can be picked up from camera and later on we can talk to the workers if they are not complying. So a lot of technology in a way has been adopted during this period. Not so much as a compliance, but to help us in terms of managing the workers, in terms of managing the dormitory, in terms of managing the work site. Yeah, so I think moving forward, that kind of speed out the whole process, like you correctly mentioned.
Thanks,
Can I just add?
Yeah, Kelvin, please.
Actually, I'm even though I've been involved in this sector for just a short while, I've been actually very encouraged. Before I started work at BC 12 weeks ago, I had a few conversations with contractors and architects, and those conversations were quite interesting. It was around how the architects was pissed off with the contractors for changing the drawings, kind of bashing the whole BIM file and things like that. And then, also spoke to the likes of JTC, who actually is a very forward-looking buyer. Started to put up projects out there that actually spelled out from the upfront in terms of the specifications that they need in terms of standardization, how they want the architect to actually design the project based on certain specs of PVC and things like that. And actually that project turned out to be actually very efficient. So I think as a community, then there are also conversations that highlight that many of the builders and the developers who actually operate as well, I think there's more and more awareness that actually the whole digital plan that they have will actually enable them to actually have a more productive facility management operations thereafter. So I think as a community, there is more and more awareness. So I'm actually very encouraged, and I think we are definitely leveraging the likes of JTCs, LTAs to help us, and HDB to actually help us push this movement forward.
Thanks, Kelvin. I agree. There's increasing awareness, and I think before I go to the open live questions, the thing I'd say is, we often look at ROI. How much I get back. When I put in now. But I think the other dimension we need to also look at is what is the cost of inaction? What if we don't do anything? Then what happens? And I think often that dimension of cost doesn't get explored. And that's something that all of us as businesses and industry need to look at as well. So on that note, let me go out to the web sphere and see what's coming through. So a question from Richard Hong. So I'm going to open this up to the panelists, and anyone can jump in to answer this, okay? So changing a mindset is key to transforming the industry. The key question is how the government and stakeholders can help to change this mindset. Will regulations help to expedite the speed of transformation? If COVID still can't help the industry to change the mindset, what more can we do to encourage the industry to change? Good one. Kiat, how do you want to take a crack at it? I know you talked about mindset, and I love that because I don't think that is spoken about enough. We talk about the tangibles versus the intangibles. What would your thoughts be?
Thanks, Harish. It's a very good question. I was just reflecting on this issue of mindset, and I thought I'd just share an example. In my previous role, I started an effort to digitalize the heartlands, and specifically what I was looking at was to digitalize the e-payment for hawker centers and coffee shops. It's always very challenging. And as all of us know, when we go to hawker centers, and especially those hawker centers that are in more mature estates, in heartlands, many of the storeholders are first-generation hawkers, right? You have the 70-year-old, like for example, in my estate, which is Burdock, and Ash will know about it because he was the one who designed the Heartbeat building, very nice building. But there was very hawker centers there, and you have people in their 70 years old. I've even got a old gentleman, 80 over years old, still managing a stall in a hawker center. And a few of us thought to ourselves during the COVID period and circuit breaker, actually, is this a good opportunity to help some of these storeholders transform to a digital payment? For example, getting them to pack and deliver food online so that they can still continue the business during this COVID period. E-payments, for example, making things more convenient for consumers, more convenient for the hawker centers and storeholders. It's a really challenging segment. These are really the last mile of transformation. And we went out and do it. We set up a digital ambassador program. Of course, the solutions, we try to make it user friendly. We try to harmonize all the QR codes, so there's a SGQR, so you don't have multiple QR codes all over the store. We worked with payment systems like Nets, etc., to make sure that the solution is user friendly. And I must say that I wasn't expecting such a enthusiastic response from the storeholders at coffee shops. And I mean, over last weekend, I just spoke to some of them. This 75-year-old lady who's running her coffee stall in a hawker center. And she said she's been using the QR payment, and asked her, Auntie, you're 75 years old. What prompted you? He said it's so much more convenient now. Instead of having chains or coins in a cashier that she bring to a bank, she now can consumers can pay by QR code, and she's now teaching other storeholders who are younger than her. I use this example. It's probably a sector and a segment of our businesses that's quite far from the construction industry, but I would say it's all end of the day, it boils down to individual mindsets. And in hawker center, I found out that actually when there's a critical mass, there's enough people doing it, the rest of the storeholders feel comfortable actually participating in it as well. And also the same thing for consumers, because sometimes you do it and feel silly, how do I do it? I don't want to ask stupid questions. But when there are more people doing it, the barriers of adoption is much lower. People step out of comfort zone and actually feel more confident actually doing it. So applying some of these ideas in the construction sector, I think it's really about mindset. If the 75-year-old storeholder who sells coffee can do it, I'm sure all of us can do it. And the more of us can do it, I think there's a critical mass. Everyone can participate in this momentum. But most importantly, we must not stop the momentum. Everyone can take a step forward. And by doing so, I think we can create a movement around it, a digitalization movement that really transforms and changes the trajectory of the entire built environment sector. So that's my reflection. The mindset is important, but all of us can encourage one another, and all of us can do it if that old auntie can do it.
Thank you, Kiat. How nicely said. I couldn't agree more. My dad, he passed away a couple of months ago, but at the late age of the 80s, he wanted to understand how to use the latest Word application, because all the operating systems kept changing and all the different applications kept changing. And he was the oldest guy in the community center on a digital training course. It was a sea of youngsters, and then you have this 85-year-old guy coming in. So it was pretty amazing to see, how he went, for me, as how he went to do it, and he asked questions, not shy, and I agree. I think there is momentum in the industry. My favorite example is Tekka Market, during COVID-19, and how COVID-19 forced all of them to use digital technologies to stay relevant and still sell, their food stuff. So I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Kiat. Let me now go on to the next question. This is from Kim Cheong Lim. I encountered great resistance towards transformation by many stakeholders. Not sure how to go about investment costs, maybe the reason, particularly for SMEs and micro enterprises. can we have the companies already implementing the digital automation process to show these smaller companies with real examples implemented and bring them together moving forward as their mentor, big brother?
Maybe I can just respond to that. I think that's exactly the intent. Whether is it the ONT that Kiat mentioned, I think it's about demonstrating that it can be done. So I think the plan is really to go out there into the industry and identify progressive partners that we have in the industry to actually show how it can be done. And obviously, the GPs will play a big role, and then also together with some of the more progressive developers and MainCon, and actually by showing that it can be done, I think the next step then would then to be able to, like Ash mentioned just now, at the end of the day, businesses, one of the key priorities is the P&L. We have to make it the environment a conducive one for the big brothers to also bring along the entire industry. So I think that's something that we would do in the months and years ahead. Yeah.
I think Harish, what we have done at two levels. One is at the Singapore Institute of Architect level, SIA, with the exception of this year because of COVID and the restrictions of gathering in crowd. We have the Archi Fairs, and SIA conducts open houses where the members actually liaise with the homeowners or building owners, and the public get to understand the building, get to see better. And in some instances, we also showcase the kind of technology that the office uses in realizing projects, from drawing from a sketch all the way to the finished product. So yes, it can be done. It's just a matter of having a concerted effort among the industry players to come up with a framework that is not one-off, but it becomes a regular event, but not to the point of becoming boring. So there has to be a certain pause in between. And within Ong&Ong, 2 years ago, we started this digital sharing platform called Beyond X, where basically we assemble all the key players in the digital industry. And we hosted a kind of a mini symposium within Ong&Ong to showcase their technology, to also showcase what Ong&Ong has been using. And the buy-in, especially among the students, because we also invited the Institute of Higher Learnings, NUS, SUTD, Polytechnics, and it was quite interesting. And this year we had to do it digitally because of the obvious reasons. And again, it's another success. So I think it depends on the individual entities to actually broadcast their event and then allow public to come in and participate as and when the opportunity arises. Yes, it can be done. It has been done. And I think I can see the success and the benefits of organizing such things. So we should do it. Yes.
Thanks, Ed. The thing I would add is, I think, to all listening in, I encourage you to also think about joining organizations like SG Tech. SG Tech works very closely with different government agencies as well. And it has a digital transformation chapter that advocates digital transformation and actually connects to other industry players as well. So that could be another avenue with regards to how you can think about this big brother mentoring sort of a setup, but some great insights as well. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Kelvin. Okay, my next question. This is from Fong Fat Chi. Our regulatory environment is both a forcing and limiting function for integrated delivery. Beyond BIM, BCA's CoreNet and PUB's POWS, walled silos come to mind. How do we align information flows, feedback loops, and process change notices across the regulatory statutory agencies to build a system that builds the system to ultimately accelerate our code to cash cycle?
I'll take that first. Fachi is actually my dear friend from school. But anyways, no, I think we have been working on a new connect called Connect X. And I think the intention is there is really to bring together and all the different regulatory requirements from all the different agencies to try our very best to kind of break down some of these silos in terms of the approval process. So hopefully through that process, projects will find that the approval process will be more streamlined. And I think it's going to be something that we will have to continue to work the industry to actually get that improving. So it's coming soon. Something that we hope to, after the initial pilot launch, I need to come back on the timeline, but hopefully then we can improve on that platform further. But it's every intention to kind of break down the approval silos that may exist today.
Thanks, Kelvin. Kiat, I have one for you. What do you think is the likely environment for Bill moving forward, and what role will automation play in the aftermath of COVID?
But I think there are a few driving forces for the built environment sector, especially for the construction industry. You talk about DFMA and automation. I think there's an important set of technologies that we need to harness. But broadly speaking, I would say that there are two aspects of it. One is, some challenges that we have to tackle. And second is really opportunities. On the challenges front, COVID-19 has shown us that I think we will have to think about getting more manpower lean in our sector. The reliance of migrant workers is going to be something that we have to think about quite carefully. Not to say that we don't need any migrant workers and don't need any workers at all in the construction industry, which is unrealistic, but actually what's the right level, and how do we make sure that the migrant workers here complement the broader industry transformation effort, and that we have ability to keep skilled migrant workers with us so that we can enhance our productivity. So we have to rethink about some of our approaches. And I think COVID-19 has just shown the importance of that, especially during the period where the infections in dorms were very high, right? So that's one. The second challenge I would say is that the broader economy will be slower. Growth will be slower. You talk about BCA's construction projections, demand projections for 2021 and moving forward. This year will be lower than what we have projected. But construction and built environment actually goes in tandem with the broader economic environment that we are in. And I think we see significant headwinds. The situation, the American election is not helping us as well. But we are entering in an environment where I think there's significant headwinds, not just because of geopolitical issues, but also I think we are in a stage of economic transformation and transition that will require us to fundamentally relook some of economic strategies, manpower included. So there are challenges for the broader economy that flows over and impacts the construction sector. But at the same time, I would say there are opportunities. I mean, a few of us, for us talking about opportunities for using technology, and there's a mindset shift that's needed. And I think, Haresh, you mentioned there's some surveys and digital maturity surveys indexes, which shows that our built environment sector is lagging in terms of digital maturity compared to many sectors. And so our comparative benchmarks the rest of the world. I will see there's opportunities, there are opportunities for us to leapfrog, opportunities for us to really transform the way we do things. And in the midst, there's another question I saw about creating local champions and good companies. And I think you talk about Ong&Ong, you talk about Team Build. These are very good examples of Singapore companies who have grown and become regional players. And I think we need to have the ambition and the optimism that we can actually punch above our weight as a sector. And how do we use this opportunity of a crisis to do things differently, transform the industry, but in the process, create champions, Singapore-based champions that can punch above our weight in the region and creating good jobs. And there are many new spaces we are looking at. I mean, across the board, look at the master plans we have in terms of built environment. You are building T5, you are building new deep tunnels for MRTs, we are creating new urban spaces, we are making our Singapore a city in nature. gives us opportunity to be really transform Singapore, urban environment. And there are opportunities for companies to be world beaters. We have right to play, right to win in some areas, and we need to double down, build capabilities. So I would say it's a glass half full, glass half empty. There are challenges, but rather than us being deflated about the challenges, turn it around, be ambitious about it. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, where can we our champions be? So I'll face it that way. Yeah.
Very nicely said. I think, challenges are always going to be there in any business, in any transformation that you go through, but the opportunities, I think, clearly outweigh the challenges. And I think if we take a half glass full view, we have I like that right to play, right to win, which is fantastic. And I think with the right mindset and the support that we're getting, not just from the government, but I think increasingly there's greater partnership across public and private sector. We can actually make a difference and create some world-class organizations. Ash, I've got one, just building off what Kiat said with regards to the topic of manpower. One of the highlighted aspects is SG United Skills Program. And I understood you personally believe that interactive and incremental learning are key to successful digital transformation. Can you provide more insight into this and share how you promote learning in Ong&Ong and the role it plays in your company's success?
Okay, as I had mentioned earlier, that within Ong&Ong, we have a learning and development team, L&D team. We develop our own training modules specifically to suit the way that we offer our consultancy services, be it design, engineering, or management. And this L&D program is across the board, within and outside Singapore, because it goes back to the earlier statement that within Ong&Ong, we use these programs to equalize, not to create tiering among the staff. So that's one part of it. But more importantly is that when we go into all this human capital development investment, our main objective at the end of the day is that, seriously, a happy staff means more productivity. It's as simple as that. But happy staff doesn't mean that they take advantage of the system or or circumvent it. But more importantly, we find that our staff are actually coming to us to say, hey, I come across this interesting program. Whether it's conducted by BCAA or whether it's conducted by another private organization, hey, can we go and attend? And what we'll do is that, okay, we'll send one or two of you first, and then you come back and share the benefits. And if it really works, then I don't mind sending more of my staff for such programs. But a lot of it is done in-house. We also licensed by Autodesk to be a training center. So whatever training the staff goes through, they are given certificates which are recognized even if they leave Ong&Ong. They can use a certificate as part of the testimony to get a better job prospect elsewhere. That's fine with us, because I'd rather that the staff leave happy than to leave otherwise sad, so to speak. Now, there is a structure of KPIs within the firm, and the KPIs actually centered around human capital upgrade, human capital development. The KPIs are not primarily on P&L. So the KPI would, for example, incentivize that if you do a project and you get a mention in a design award or an engineering award or construction award, then you actually at the end of the day can enjoy more performance bonus. But that is probably the best way to incentivize our staff. So it's a long journey, Harish. It didn't happen overnight. Took us at least about 10 years to arrive where we are. And I think we are still learning along the way. We are still learning. We need to adapt ourselves. We need to be agile. We need to be very mobile to just change with the environment. I mean, 1 year ago, nobody thought of COVID-19. And today, because of COVID-19, we have just done our whole way of working inside out and upside down. But guess what? We still got to work. We still got to deliver. We can't tell our clients that, sorry, we don't know how to proceed any further.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Thank you, Ash. Johnny, I have one for you. So, the circuit breaker and this whole COVID thing has, obviously caused a lot of challenges for companies, right? And in some of the things you said just now was interesting. You said technology is no more a disruptor. It's actually a core need to solving problems. Right? It's a core enabler to solving problems. Tell me a little bit about how you've adapted your business to overcome some of these mindsets and the role digital has played and how you have done it. And what advice would you give to the SMEs out there in terms of how they can go about this journey that Ash talks about? Because you got to learn along the way.
I think like you correctly mentioned, actually mindset is the most difficult part of it. You have to get through that first part, get your staff to buy in, and you got to educate them in terms of what the changes are, what the benefits are. And once the buy-in is there, then gradually you demonstrate that it is actually more productive. It helps them in their work. And then it kind of develops itself into something that people believe in, and the flow becomes a lot simpler. As far as the COVID is concerned, actually we face quite a lot of challenges, many of which we didn't foresee. For instance, like the MCO from Malaysia, suddenly all our factories cannot deliver the goods to Singapore. And likewise, with all the dormitory infection, suddenly everything came to a standstill. And therein lie the challenge. How are we going to move from here? For one, we got to look at digital platform to kind of align the entire chain from the factory to the fit-out yard to the construction site. And what do we look at? We got to look at QA, QC, you got to look at schedule of work, you got to look at productivity in terms of production of the modules and where the stoppages are and how to smoothen the whole process. And the best way to do it is actually go through a digital platform. And that is actually currently in the process. We are developing a platform still in the works with a service provider to see how we can string up the entire process. And at each point, there must be certain checks to ensure that the goods are good enough to be carried on to the next stage. So I think those are still in the works. But definitely what we see in terms of DFMA, which Kiat earlier mentioned, is that it kind of transformed the way the workers work and also the mindset. And generally our feedback from the subcontractors who are working with us, they find it in a way is a more productive method. For simple reason is that now they're working in a factory environment, they can better monitor the workers in terms of productivity. In terms of material, there's lesser wastage because basically you're transferring the materials from one module to the next. So I think there are a lot of benefits arising from it. Even to the extent of attracting local to come into the construction industry. Because construction industry typically has been termed as dangerous, dirty, and demanding. But now you're working in a different environment, you're working in a sheltered environment, you are able to use technology to kind of track the progress rather than on site. And on site, we are able to, during the site work, we are able to reduce manpower, sometimes by even 50%, because most of the work are carried out in the factory. So I think moving forward, for us, there's no U-turn. We definitely want to journey on in this direction. And I think probably that's our vision of how the industry can in a way be transformed so that we can lesser the reliance on foreign workers.
And what advice, Johnny, would you give to all the SMEs out there who are tuned in today with regards to how they can start embarking on their digital journeys?
I think one thing you probably got to get the entire management to see the vision, to get the buy-in. And once you are committed to it, then you got to take the first step and get your feet wet. And then gradually you just journey on. Any problems or obstacles you encounter, you just got to get through them, and then you see the results at the end. Yeah, we're still journeying on after doing this for so many years. Like I said, one definite area which we feel that there is an urgent need now is actually a digital platform to kind of align the entire process from the factory all the way to the construction site.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. So before I hand it on to Kiat Hao for his closing remarks, let me ask Kelvin and Ash the same question. What advice all SMEs watching today on how they can start and get on with their digital journeys? Kelvin?
Okay, Kelvin first.
Oh, okay. No, I think first of all, know that the different agencies, government agencies from BCA to IMDA to ESG, we are all standing by to see how we can help as SMEs. I think there are already many programs out there to assist the SMEs in kind of like what Johnny mentioned, taking the first step in kind of experiencing what it feels like. And then, like I mentioned just now, the intention moving forward is really to work with some of the progressive larger players to see how we can demonstrate how it can be done. And thereafter, I mean, there's every intention to see how we can get them to also help contribute to kind of taking care of the rest of their supply chain. I mean, there's a lot of best practices that needs to trickle down, and we will need the customers and the leaders in there to help. So kind of mentoring from the big boys. And I guess like all of us in any organizations, for us to catch up with time, sometimes we need to do a bit of reverse monitoring. We need to get some of the young folks coming in to teach us what we are kind of a bit lagging behind. I think that's something that, I guess in terms of talents, I mean, BCA actually gives out a lot of scholarship to young talents. And together with the SG United traineeship programs, there are actually a lot of opportunities for many of the SMEs to harness many of these programs to actually tap on the digitally native young people coming out into the industry. And I think that's a good place to start for many of the SMEs to really look at how we can bring in some of these people to reverse mentor ourselves.
Yeah. Very, very nicely said. Thanks, Kelvin.
From the consultant's perspective, based on the scheme of things, I think regulation, codes, and standards are possibly easier targets to achieve in terms of using digital technology. The challenge really is that I think to all the SMEs out there, have the belief, the conviction, and have the stamina. Take the bull by the horn. And I've always believed that failing is not a stigma. Failing is actually part of the whole learning process. Because when you fail, you actually know what not to do the next time. And you really have to believe in yourself, because if you don't do that, then it becomes quite difficult for you to weigh the pros and cons, whether should I spend, should I not spend, should I embrace technology, should I not embrace. It becomes a conundrum for you. So just go there, take the bull by the horn, and in Hokkien we say good chong lah.
All right, thanks. Ash, thank you so much, Johnny and Kelvin as well, and Kiat Hao. A really insightful conversation. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know everyone's very busy, so can I invite Kiat Hao to provide your closing remarks to everyone?
Thank you, Haresh, and for really helping to pull the conversations together, and for very, very useful insights. And of course, to my distinguished panel, Johnny, Kelvin, and Ash. I don't have any particular insights as closing remarks, but just wanted to add my encouragement to those of comments that were made by my panel members. We just give it a try, step out of your comfort zone, and we're all in this together. You heard so much about this is a crisis for a generation. There are real opportunities that we can really leverage in this generation as well. I think there's some truism in all these points that were being made by many people outside this call, as well as experts around the world. And the reality is that I think we are in an exceptional period where it's very hard for us even to project how does Singapore, how does the sector, how does the world look like 1 year from now. And we are really in a uncharted territory. I don't think the world has ever been here, Singapore has not been here before. And I think therein lies, I think, a lot of uncertainty. And I can understand some of the concerns, anxieties faced by many in the sector. At the same time, I think there are real opportunities. Let us seize the silver lining in the dark clouds. And I think the most important thing that I want to, most important point I want to leave with everyone is that we are all in this together. And it's just a testament of all of us coming together in this CXO in conversation, having the panel with us, having the attendees in this call, and all the things that are being deployed by PCA and other government agencies in partnership with the industry associations, with the different stakeholder players. You don't see this partnership anywhere else in the world. It's not anywhere else in the world. It's only in Singapore. It's unique to us that we're really coming together, say, we have a challenge, we have an opportunity, we're all in this together. And I think that is the most important point I want to leave with everyone. Let us really journey together. At any point in time, if anyone has any good ideas, any suggestions, please let us know. And we are prepared to work with you to really study those proposals. Finally, I just want to wish everyone a good day, and thank you very much, Haresh, for moderating this session, and thank you, SGTech, for organizing this webinar.
Thanks, Kiat. Thanks, Kiat. I really appreciate the closing thought. I just want to quickly summarize what I've heard. Now, digital transformation clearly is a journey for everyone. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but I think Kiat talked about mindset and capabilities and all the work that the government's doing to support the industry and the ecosystem. Ash talked about, do you want to be disrupted or do you want to be the disruptor? You know, and I think this is real because the disruption is real, whether it's COVID, whether it's technology-driven disruption is real. And technology is an integrated fabric, integrated to the fabric of our everyday lives, including businesses. And Johnny turned around and talked about tech becomes a need to solve problems. It's no longer, about disruption. It is not a disruptor anymore. It's a core enabler to success. And Kelvin talked about the adoption of common data environment, the work that BCA is doing for the built environment in Singapore to pull and to build, to break the walls and pull things together for different companies. So all in all, we will all need to learn as we go through digital transformation. All the successes of digital transformation across different industries we hear about comes with a lot of learnings. It's not just blue skies, but we're all in this together. And I think Kiat summarized it well. At the end of the day, we have the opportunity to make and create something pretty phenomenal in Singapore with the different companies and a lot of young digital natives entering the construction industry, some of which I know are partnering with the government already today, doing some really, really good work, especially when you talk about opening up construction sites and providing safety. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I want to encourage everyone to participate with SGTech. There's a lot of work going on in SGTech as well to help businesses, to help people, not just in terms of development or skill sets, but in terms of conversations and dialogues, including some of the big brother mentoring stuff that, that was discussed earlier. So there's a digital transformation chapter. I encourage you to sign up and become a member so that you can take part on the wide-ranging activities that SGTech provides for businesses out there. Thank you very much for joining us and have a great week ahead. Thanks,
Thank you, Haresh, and thank you, the panel. Okay, so for the audience, I have some resources to share with everyone. So this is a slide with all the grants links. So SME Go Digital program aims to help SMEs use digital technologies to build stronger digital capabilities to seize growth and opportunities in the digital economy. So you can scan all the QR codes to find out more about each program. PSG co-funds 70% of qualifying costs for adopting pre-approved digital solutions under the construction and facilities management industry digital plan. The business grants portal brings together the different grants from Enterprise Singapore, STB, on PSG as well as for the startup and SMEs, you are eligible to 80% funding of Autodesk software and technology. You can scan the QR code to find out more. And lastly, you also have the Gov Business Gov Access program that consolidates all the pre-scope IT solutions for the building and construction industry. Next, for SGTech members, if you are an SME and an SGTech member, you can tap on the SGTech's Stronger Together Aiding Recovery Staff Fund. The Staff Fund is put together by SGTech as well as our sponsors, Facebook, as well as Enterprise Singapore, to assist members in training and reskilling their workforce to grow their business. We also have a few upcoming activities. SGTech is leading the Singapore Pavilion at the GeoConnect Asia 2021. GeoConnect Asia 2021 will be a focal point for ASEAN geospatial industry, combining an exhibition and a range of conferences over 2 days to provide a platform for an industry crucial to regional development. Eligible Singapore-registered companies who exhibit at the Singapore Pavilion will enjoy up to 50 to 70% IFM funding supported by ESG for the exhibition booth. Please scan the QR code to find out more, or you can just drop an email to info@sgtech.org and we will also reply to your queries. Lastly, let us know what you think of today's webinar, or if you have any feedbacks for the speakers. If you would like to join us to co-host any sectoral transformation activities with us, please email to us, events@sgtech.org, and we will also get back to you regarding your requests. So that's all for today. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. And I will bring back the slide on the grants for a few more moments, and I look forward to meeting you again at our future events. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.